Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, we get a livestock market analysis from Dr. Glenn Tonser of Kansas State University. He was recently featured at the annual Risk Profit Conference that took place in Manhattan. We also have features from Kansas Corn, Kansas Wheat, and the Kansas Farm Bureau, and our update from the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion, a division of KCO ISO.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com.
In agricultural news from agview.net, despite challenges from COVID-19 and bad weather, higher commodity prices and government support have finally turned the tide around for year-over-year increases in Chapter 12 bankruptcies. The Farm Bureau looked at the data in the U.S. courts from June 2020 through June of this year, found there were 438 Chapter 12 bankruptcy filings. That's down 24%. The number of Chapter 12 filings over the last 12 months, the lowest level since 2015. The decrease in bankruptcy filings, noteworthy shift considering the significant number of bankruptcies during the last 3 years. The Southwest saw the largest increase in number of Chapter 12 filings by total number and percentage. Filing increase in 3 of 6 states, Colorado, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. Filing also increased in the Northeast U.S. Regions of the country had some better news, though, with double-digit drops in the number of Chapter 12 filings by total numbers and percentages. The Southeast had 54 fewer Chapter 12 filings, a 44% drop from the previous year. The Midwest, which leads all regions with their number of filings, 235, still had 61 fewer Chapter 12 bankruptcies in the last year. Well, the liquid propane prices in the U.S. could be heading higher based on current supply-demand factors. That could mean higher corn drying costs for farmers this fall. Well, looking ahead to the LP market environment for grain drying in the fall, analysts are using descriptions like train wreck and tug of war. The rising LP prices domestically are being driven by rising global demand. The Oil Price Information Service Center said the price is likely to stay high because overseas demand is strong enough that can keep the overseas market even higher. The service said China's end users of LP can already afford to pay the high prices, so there's no really reason for prices to go lower. If U.S. LP producers can make more money overseas than they can domestically, well, the first option will be to sell their product in the export market. LP stocks to the U.S. have also dropped recently. Stay with us. More in a moment.
The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum. Growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. And agview.net, serving the Beef Belt and Western Corn Belt with reliable and relevant agriculture information. agview.net.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Access to high-speed broadband services creates new jobs, expands markets for new and existing businesses.
We work with Blue Valley here at the Lando Corporation for our broadband, and our phones are through the internet system, as well as all of our communication amongst buildings. Even here in my department, we use this broadband for me sending a file from my computer out into the printers because we do all of our printing here in-house. Things have changed dramatically since we've gotten broadband. Things are 4 or 5 times faster than what they would have been. something that I might have had to make a phone call for, drive physically to another city, or mail a flash drive, what I can now send via WeTransfer or some other site online. So it makes things instantaneous versus 2 or 3 days for a transaction.
Learn more at kfb.org/connectingkansas.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and LibertyLink that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
And joining us now, Dr. Glenn Tonser, ag economist, Kansas State University. We are reaching him here at the Risk Profit Conference, took place here in Manhattan. And well, Dr. Tonser, you presented a livestock update, and you and I have talked several times. I would guess probably the first question you get, the first question I get, is these box beef prices, the correlation between that and live cattle. Are we going to finally come? Because we just heard the folks at Cattle Facts not too long ago said, hey, happier days are coming soon.
Yeah, and I do think those happier days are coming soon from a cattle seller's perspective, and that applies both for those selling feeders as well as fed. That in itself isn't tied to the correlation of boxed beef. That's a separate question. Right. But I do think the discussion between the quote-unquote disparity that's in the news all the time between beef and cattle prices will dissipate some in the months ahead. And honestly, a lot of that is to do with right size and supply. So we've gotten current with fed cattle. We still have strong beef demand. We're going to bid up more fed cattle in the months ahead. I shared some pretty positive, an optimistic forecast for fed cattle prices in the next, let's say 6 to 8 months in particular. And we've already seen that strength in the feeder cattle market. Mm-hmm. So I do think better days are ahead if you're a cattle seller. Okay, so this summer we had a lot of cows go to town, especially north of us. Now, again, that's not numbers like we see in Kansas and other places, but what kind of impact will that have then? Is that going to tighten things up finally? And we're not done with that story, but I think important context is, there's quite a few mama cows in the Dakotas, but the majority of the states that have had persistent drought pressure are not top 10 beef cow states. So I'm not trying to be insensitive to that, but the bulk of the drought pressure has not been like Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas like we did in 2012. So yes, we've sent mama cows to town, and yes, it matters because we're going to shrink the supply of mama cows and subsequently the calf crop a little more because of it. But I don't think it's accurate to compare it to 2012, and some are doing that, mainly because of where the drought is and where the mama cows in the industry are. So we were going to be shrinking the herd a little bit anyhow. Quote unquote cattle cycle, uncomfortable volatility in feeder cattle prices does that to cow-calf producers. But the drought west of us, and particularly, think Denver and west and or the Dakotas to the north, the ongoing uncertainty for those herds is certainly of note. I want to talk about the box beef situation in just a little bit, but I do want to talk about we're coming up on this fall's corn crop. It looks to be another big crop. Will that help when it comes to figuring out our rations and our feed costs for these feeder cattle? Well, a bigger crop certainly helps compared to a small crop, all else equal, but we got to remember the notion of demand. So global demand for lots of things, including corn and soybean meal, is quite high. So, our constituents, Kansas livestock producers that are trying to buy that as a feedstuff, They're not the only people in the world
Right.
trying to buy as a feedstuff. So a lot of why corn prices are higher is both those past concerns about the supply, which we're not out of the woods till it's in the bin, right? But nonetheless, that's there. But global demand is quite strong. So I think there's reasons to think we'll have some improvement on feed cost, but I think it's misleading to say it's going to be as good as it was a year or two ago. We have higher feed costs that are probably here to stay for at least another corn crop.
Okay. Dr. Glenn Tonser, Kansas State University, is joining us. We're going to take a break. We're going to talk about the box beef situation, and I also want to talk just a little bit about the pork trade. We'll do that in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
And Dr. Glenn Tonser, Kansas State University ag economist, the livestock economist, is joining us. Okay, let's just talk about this. I mean, you and I have talked several times, shared with our audience. We hear beef demand is the strongest in 30-some years. There's a piece, though, I think those in the countryside are missing. When we see every day, I mean, that morning and afternoon reports, it continues to get stronger when we have all these other outside influences that are telling us, well, people may or may not be going out. The food service is down. Where is this going? Are there other cuts and other pieces that are boosting this market?
Right. So sitting here in the middle of August specifically, I think we have a lot of uncertainty in the wholesale beef demand environment. On balance, I'm pretty positive, but compared to a month ago alone, there's a lot more uncertainty whether we're going to lose food service traffic. So the Delta variant and the like, what's that going to do? That hasn't stopped restaurants from still wanting to keep the pipeline full, but they won't keep doing that forever if the foot traffic stops. That's why that uncertainty is there.
Okay.
So the mixed news and mixed media discussion is we have the Delta variant, airline volume is taking a little bit of a hit and so forth. Some are going further and say, well, that slow restaurant traffic. If it does, it probably will be a bit of a pullback on not just beef, but all meat demand, because a lot of the last 3 or 4 months, a lot of the boost, we had strong demand that's been boosted by an effort to refill the food service pipeline. Well, we'll hit pause on that if restaurants take a step back, and I'm really highlighting that because that uncertainty is elevated compared to just a month ago.
But will we get back down? I guess we talked about the grains a few years ago about this new plateau we were on. That didn't last very long. Are we at a new plateau when it comes to our boxed beef?
I don't know that that's accurate because I'm confident over the next 2 years we're going to have fewer cattle to slaughter. So that's supportive on a supply side of maintaining higher prices. And we have revealed behavior that beef buyers at the wholesale level are willing to pay higher prices than we saw before in the last 2 years. That doesn't guarantee we're going to stay there. But I do think the floor could be higher, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
What used to be sticker shock in the wholesale beef market may not be sticker shock over the next few years, and that would be a good thing if we have supportive supplies that are holding, pushing prices up that way, and we have good demand. We should all want strong beef prices because it'll spill over, and I think you will see more of that translate into cattle prices as we right-size the herd with packing capacity.
What about? Are you concerned at all about inflation? Some of these tones we're hearing.
Yes, and one of the things we do monitor, the meat demand monitors, beef and pork checkoff funded here at K-State. The last 5 months I've been tracking consumers' expectations for 2 beef and 2 pork prices the next month, and consumers are concerned about that, and rightly so. They're seeing prices go up. But my concern isn't unique to meat. I say yes because I'm concerned with everything hitting consumers, their budget. And if we have stagnant budgets at some point, if we have any economic slowdown, then protein demand is at risk because it's expensive compared to the things in the basket.
Quickly on the pork trade, it has been, this year has been very interesting to say the least.
Yes, it has. You mean exports as well?
Yes.
That's what you mean by trade? Yeah, so it's been, interesting to say the least. I remain very optimistic that actually both beef and pork, we're going to have strong exports in the weeks ahead, the months ahead, the years ahead, barring a disease surprise. So you brought up pork.
Right.
What is relevant when we're doing this recording is there is elevated concerns around African swine fever here in the U.S. It's now in our hemisphere. To my knowledge, it's not in the lower 48 states, but there's elevated concern about that. That is relevant specific to your comment about trade. because it's very likely, if that was to occur in the lower 48, and God help us, I hope it doesn't happen, that we will likely see a disruption in international trade of pork products.
Right.
To be determined. I hope we're not doing interviews when that
Right.
happens. I don't want to observe it, but it is an elevated risk
Sure.
compared to the last time you and I talked.
So you laid out a line that you're somewhat bullish when it comes to the protein sector.
Yes, I'm very bullish on consumers will reveal their willingness to pay for meat that we haven't seen before. Consumer incomes and savings levels are up. We'll ignore long-term debt issues for another day, but in the near term, that is very supportive.
Okay.
I think if we avoid disease surprises and inter-industry politics, which we won't belabor
Right.
here, but I shared some of those thoughts today, then there's a lot of reason to be optimistic in the livestock industry.
Very good. Dr. Ben Tonzer, K-State livestock economist, has joined us. Stay with us. We'll have more in just a moment.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn. For livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Right now it's time for the Kansas Corn Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Corn Commission. And joining us now is Alex Vosberg. He is from Maxville, and he is a part of the Kansas Corn Corps class number 4. And Alex, first off, thanks for joining us. And can you describe the Kansas Corn Corps and what that is all about?
Kansas Corn Association has put together this group to kind of find some producers across the state, bring them together, and help with developing some education that you may not get in other facets. I had about 4 or 5 sessions where we got together and talked about, it was from succession planning to some agronomy to marketing and everything in between.
And one of the things that includes on that is a domestic ag trip, which you guys just recently got back from touring around the state of Kentucky.
That's our last kind of hoorah with the group as we do a domestic trip, and we flew into Nashville, toured a couple of farms there, and then headed north through Kentucky and toured farms there before returning to Nashville and flying home.
And it's safe to say that obviously some of the things that they grow down there or raise down there, very different from what you see here in Kansas.
Yeah, when we first landed in Nashville, we drove by a few fields, and I thought, man, this kind of looks like Kansas. There seems to be hot and dry, maybe losing a little bit of the top-end yield, but I don't know what was wrong with that particular area, because once we started heading north and west, it was just a lot smaller farms than you see in Kansas, more employees per farm, too. There's some specialty cropping going on, whether it be tobacco or watermelon, but a lot of corn and soybeans, a lot of real fertile soil and access to a tremendous amount of water, whether it be directly out of the river or pumping groundwater as well. They don't know what a flow meter is over there. They just as soon get rid of the water before it causes damage. So it was very different than what we're used to here in Kansas, but cropping rotation, definitely very similar to what we're doing, but their top-end yield was definitely a little higher than most areas of the state. But there were some dryland areas that, would be competing with some of the yields we had on our irrigated here in Kansas.
Alex Vosberg is joining us from Maxville. He's a part of Kansas Corn Corps class number 4. And if you would like to be a part of that, you can go to their website at kscorn.com. Alex, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here, the time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
More than 110 customers from across South America, representing 92 different companies, tuned in on July 15th for a virtual wheat crop update. U.S. Wheat Associates, the industry's export market development organization, organized the activity, which included reports on wheat harvest. In a normal year, U.S. Wheat Associates organizes in-person tours across the globe called crop quality tours to provide firsthand insights into the current year's wheat harvest. This year, these programs have transitioned to a virtual format. This year's virtual meeting was emceed by Kansas Wheat's Aaron Harries and Miguel Galdos, U.S. Wheat Associates South American Regional Director. Romulo Lotto, Wheat and Forage Extension Specialist at Kansas State University, discussed the preliminary report on the Kansas hard red winter wheat harvest, followed by reports on the Oklahoma crop by Mike Schulte of the Oklahoma Wheat Commission and the Kansas soft red winter wheat crop by Justin Gilpin, Kansas Wheat CEO. The program ended with comments from Sean Campbell of the Andersons Trading Group on the grain trade and Brian Lennon, a wheat farmer from Goodland who is in the midst of harvest. U.S. Wheat Associates will continue this educational effort by following up with personalized visits to the companies represented on the virtual trade team, some of whom made immediate requests for technical consultations following the program. The U.S. Wheat Associates office in Santiago, Chile, also has plans to install a bake lab to add another way to promote the reliability, quality, and value of U.S. wheat.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Kansans are saving money and getting quality coverage with Kansas Farm Bureau health plans.
We are happy with our Kansas Farm Bureau health plan. It's not only saving us money, but we're a few months into it now, so our local clinics and hospitals now do have all of that information in, and it's working well. We're pleased with it. I think people look at that $50 fee for a membership and think, oh, I don't have to do this for other companies. I'll spend that $50 to save $14,000 a year.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Ranchland Trust of Kansas, in partnership with Sand County Foundation and the Kansas Association of Conservation Districts, has announced 4 finalists for the Kansas Leopold Conservation Award. Given in honor of renowned conservationist Aldo Leopold, the $10,000 award recognizes those who inspire others with their dedication to land, water, and wildlife. Vance and Louise Imke of Healy conserve soil and water by experimenting with crops to protect fields from soil erosion. Additionally, they have more than 50 playas that are used for research and education on how they impact the Ogallala Aquifer. Ray and Susan Flickner of Wichita installed subsurface drip irrigation technology to be more efficient with water and nutrient application on crops. They also experiment with cover crops to improve water infiltration and suppress weeds. Dwayne Roth of Manhattan owns Big D Farms in Finney County, where cover crops are used to build soil health and combat wind erosion. He tests irrigation strategies that maintain crop production with reduced water usage. Glenn and Barbara Walker of Brookville are improving soil, wildlife, and water distribution through rotational grazing and investments in removing invasive red cedar trees. The 2021 Kansas Leopold Award will be presented in November at the Kansas Association of Conservation Districts Convention in Wichita.
Premier Farm & Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken,
We choose Premier Farm and Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
Access to high-speed broadband services creates new jobs, expands markets for new and existing businesses.
I own several different businesses besides, working at Foster Dairy. One of those is an import business where I communicate every day with my manufacturer in Turkey. And so it is extremely important for that viability of that business, that communication, that I have good quality internet because we're doing business across the world. I would be at a loss or at a disadvantage if I did not have good quality internet for me to get my products out or for me to be able to communicate with my counterparts on the other side of the world.
Learn more at kfb.org/connectingkansas.
Good morning. I'm Darren Van Vactor with Penny and Risk Management, a division of KCO ISM. The wheat market has been on a tear here as of late. Originally fueled by the spring wheat production issues, Chicago and KC have both caught their breath, respectively, making new highs. Competition to get wheat out of the feed channel, weather issues abroad, and a surprising domestic stocks reduction have all played their part in the rally. Speaking of reduced stocks, the USDA's surprise decrease in corn production and stocks caught the market a bit off guard, sending corn back to the highest level since the 4th of July. Bean production is still the most heavily debated from the yield side of things. USDA took a cautious approach with the bean yield adjustment in August, but weather can still cause a few surprises in the September and October reports. Additionally, we've seen an uptick in daily export sales announcements over the last few weeks. If buying activity continues, it would square up the export projections, which have been limping along. With fall harvest quickly approaching, it's a good time to take stock of your operations risk and make sure you're in the best shape possible. Once the combines start rolling, it's going to be hard to focus on anything but the task at hand. If you'd like to discuss, give us a call at 888-452-8751. I'm Darren Van Vactor. Be safe and have a great week.
Well, that's our show this week. Be social with us at KansasAgReport.net or our other social media channels. Safety first, safety always, because we want you to be with us next time on the Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. Have a great week.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn. For livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.